It's taken months upon months of work, but I've finally done it. I have composed a theory where each puzzle piece fits, something I can back up with tons of evidence for my claims. I think I've done it. I think I've solved the mystery of Starr Park. And yeah, that's a big claim, especially since half the community either seems to have lost interest in it or thinks that it's solved, but in my opinion, Kairos' past theories don't explain everything, and I don't mean that in a negative way. He is one of my favorite content creators, but he leaves so much unanswered, and that's why I'm here. I have composed the most important questions into 5 major categories. What is Starr Park and what are they doing? Why is Starr Park doing it? What is SPUDE? Major characters, where we'll cover the identities of certain brawlers and how they fit into the mystery, and what happened to Starr Park. But before we dive into the answer, let's give some backstory on the game. If you've been here for the ride, then you can skip to the conveniently placed timestamp in the description. Back in May of 2020, a Reddit user by the name of Zipper04 posted a Morse code that he had found in the Taurus Bazaar environment. The message simply read WKBRL, which to many people, including me at the time, just sounded like gibberish, and the only fact that I could make out was the fact that W and K are both used at the beginning of radio stations depending on their placement and correlation of the Mississippi River. And so, for a few days, no one could find anything related to the strange code. That is, until about a week later, when another Reddit user, Leo48625, decided to look it up on YouTube. It brought him to a weird stream filled with radio gadgets and recording equipment, and the only noise coming from the broadcast were a few staticky, pre-recorded sounds going on a loop. The stream was confirmed to have been real, as over the next few months it provided us with hints and clues about upcoming animations, updates, and gadgets. But there were also weirder sounds on the stream. Ads about molecular reconstruction, crow talk shows, homeless genies, sick redheads, and tons of other absurd and oddly specific topics. Then, on August 20th, one of the game's characters, 8-Bit, had his screen begin to glitch out. When clicked on 8 times, the player would be taken out of their game and into the browser, where a 3-part minigame would take place. The first segment was called Project Laser, an Easter egg to when the game was back in its alpha stage. When shooting into a specific black hole in the game, the black hole would shoot out white light and transfer 8-Bit into the second part of the level, titled Slugfest, yet another possible title for Brawl Stars in its early stages. In the background, you can see strange objects and landscapes that don't appear anywhere else in the game, and when the player tapped on the green gas in the background during the winning animation, it would cause what kind of looks like a robot acid trip as his redometer goes off the hook. A disembodied voice, presumed to be 8-Bit's subconsciousness, tells 8-Bit to go back and forget everything that has happened to him. And upon denying his request, the player is transported to the final part of the minigame, Starcade Breakdown, a platformer where a surprisingly fast 8-Bit runs through an arcade. When jumping over the exit, which leads to the game's normal ending, we find a blackened version of 8-Bit blocking the only exit, mirroring every move the player makes. Shooting him only causes the damage to be reflected onto your own health bar. The only way to beat him is to use the lag between the jumps to shoot the outlet he is connected to, unplugging him. Once defeated, 8-Bit opens the garage door and looks out upon what appears to be a theme park, with the only text saying, "You went deep into the recesses of your memory. In doing so, you destroyed yourself. In doing so, you freed yourself." And just like that, the browser closes itself and takes you back into the game. Because of these sudden, huge mysteries, people started working in conjunction to try and put these puzzle pieces together. Popular YouTubers such as Ray, Lex, and Kairos Time started creating hype around the subject. There were theorists and scouts like Advertisement Guy leading the charge. The entire community was coming together to translate and uncover the truth. And pretty soon, the mystery was about to get a level deeper. That was when Twitter user Gamba received a wooden crate from a woman at a cactus mask delivered straight to his front door. Printed on the box in bold were the words, Starr Park. But why this person? Most likely because Gamba was the first person to realize that Brawl Stars was an amusement park. And in the box was something that confirmed his idea, an old laptop with a saved website claiming to be the official fan site of a defunct amusement park. On the site were a gallery of images, memorabilia from when the park was still active. The strange thing was, every photo had some off-putting caption, something that just stood out, like a person was trying to send a message, but someone was watching their every move. The second item on the website was a broken link to something called the investor video, which, when clicked on, would create a fake pop-up ad that was impossible to clear in any way besides refreshing the web page. The only other item left on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner was a black and white timer, counting down. Once the timer started nearing its end, it became clear that the counter was counting down towards Brawl Talk, and that was when it happened. Halfway through the video, the screen glitched out and the investor video was shown. Around the same time, with just a few days difference, the WKBRL stream went haywire as an energy drink spilled onto the equipment, and a man who will hereafter be referenced as Ranter began spewing an insane rant talking about the crazy things going on in this world. The man was obviously meant to encapsulate the ideologies of conspiracy theorists, even talking about people of the concave Earth. After a while, the man gets increasingly panicked and starts talking about how they are coming for him. Green gas begins to pour under the door, and as alarms blare, the man is dragged out of the room, never to be heard from again. After countless hours of waiting, the stream finally corrected itself, and a woman's voice could be heard saying,
"This is normal. This is normal."
And then, on October 10th, 2020, a date scattered around in hints, the WKBRL stream updated once more for the last time. The woman's voice could be heard again, reiterating,
"We already told you. This is normal."
And the sounds of a cackling fire slowly engulfing the broadcasting station were the last things ever heard. But that's not the end of this story. There's still a mystery to be solved. Starr Park, and by extension Supercell, is doing something sinister. So watch, viewers, as we enter a place where the laws of time don't seem to apply, and why you shouldn't always sleep most of the day. All across the board, repetition has been used to stress importance in clues. The man on the WKBRL stream saying things like,
Singularity? Huh? Singularity?
And
Comets? Comets?
we also have things like references to teeth in Ivan's Cactus Farm, in the 8-bit minigame, and the Starr Park website. But what's really noticeable is the amount of references to dreams. Rancher, for example,
Dreams can be clues for real life. Now, I have a genie. Yes. He haunts me in my dreams sometimes.
There's even references throughout the investor video.
これは夢なのか? 夢がここで生まれます。
There's even a dream catcher in the background right here, and look at the part where our narrator is swapped with a janitor in the back. He appears to be sleeping. I mean, even here. Wait. Enhance. Enhance. I know it's not getting clear, but enhance some more. Does Pam have her eyes closed? Actually, although it's hard to see with the 70s video quality, half the people in this video seem to have their eyes closed. These people all seem to be asleep, almost as if their minds are somewhere else. Let's take a look at what Ranter says at one point in his speech.
Gosh, sometimes it's so clear to me I can't believe everybody's got blinders on out there. Take your blinders off and look around. I just did it and I don't know where I am.
He himself seems to be one of these people. The only difference is that he can open his eyes. So where in the world would they be if their body is in the real Starr Park? To put it simply, the game. He even says,
And I am inside a simulation.
But there's a lot more, and I mean a lot more, to what Starr Park is doing. But for the moment, let's discuss how Starr Park is putting people into dreams. Now, our first lead is pretty simple, because he straight out tells us in one of my favorite lines I think I've ever heard anyone say in my lifetime,
They have weaponized spaghetti.
And that is not by any means an understatement. Throughout the Starr Park website, we see food labeled as inedible or may not be safe to eat. And this, at first glance, is probably because the food is at least 50 years old, but we're not going to talk about that. Plus, I'm pretty sure Ranter ate some incredibly old beans, and I'm guessing he's fine.
Old beans at the back of the shelf. When they expire, they still good. Probably. You didn't hear from me.
So assuming that old food isn't the reason why this stuff is inedible, why would it be? Well, once again, Ranter sums it up pretty well, stating that nuclear reactors might be part and parcel to weaponized spaghetti. Let's take a look at the 8-bit minigame. In the second segment of the game, Slugfest, we see 8-bit jump into green showdown gas before being transported to the Starrcade and Starr Park. But the showdown gas isn't the thing to be focusing on here. It's 8-bit's screen. It shows an insane amount of rads per hour, rads being a measurement of radiation. So what if Starr Park was putting radioactive food into the mouths of their customers and employees to put them into a deep sleep, where their minds could be transferred into the game? One of the symptoms of radiation poisoning is coma, after all, and as crazy as it sounds, there's just so much evidence for this. And on top of that, we also have the aftermath of the WKBRL siren. What is one of the two things left? An empty package of a Starr Park TV dinner, which contains spaghetti and gumballs. A TV dinner which could have been used to put someone who was doing a bit too much blabbering back into a coma where they belong. But what about germs? How do they fit into all of this? Well, I think that it's not just radioactive material that's being put into the food. I think it's also some sort of virus or bacteria, and that makes sense because if you go and eat some uranium, chances are you're just gonna die. That is, unless in combination with a type of bacteria, it becomes edible. Listen to Ranter.
Why are they green? Why are they purple? Why are they such delicious flavors-looking colors? Why do they look like you want to eat them? You can't. You have to eat them with your mind.
And that's the big thing. He confirms previously that gems are germs. In one WKBRL excerpt, you can hear the narrator asking for
Many, many healthy
dancers with strong immune systems, few family connections, will get a job in the dance show. Do you have a weak sense of smell? That's a plus, too.
What does the webmaster say? That the spaghetti on a stick has a strong smell. A strong smell from the biologically weaponized bacteria in the food. The caption for these gumballs say may or may not be safe to eat. Why would they even have a chance to be safe to eat? Because it depends on whether or not you've been doused with green gas, or in other words, your radioactivity level. Alright, says one skeptical viewer, how could someone in the 1970s have their mind transferred into a game which takes place during the 21st century? And I think Kairos answered this pretty well in one of his theories. Black holes. One of the most important things Ranter stresses is the singularity, which is essentially an infinitely dense point where there's a ton of matter, something that exists in a black hole. And I have more evidence for this. Look at this device on the Starr website. Zooming in, we can see the word oscilloscope branded on the machine. An oscilloscope is a tool that is used to measure the waves of light and sound. Now look at this clip from the investor video where you can see the very same oscilloscope being used right alongside a radar. And on that radar appear to be a cluster of objects, and if you didn't know, radiology has been used many times in the past to discover and locate objects in space. What Kairos assumes to be happening here is that Starr is using black holes to bend time and space to achieve time travel, and I won't say that that theory is wrong, but there's another possibility that would simplify it a bit. Because Ranter talks about
interdimensional theme parks. Do they exist? Obviously.
And time travel doesn't really cover this part. But to find the video that does, we can look to Kotzagat in a nutshell, which has a great video on wormholes. One of their topics is called an Einstein-Rosen bridge, which, if you've ever watched any of the Thor movies, might sound familiar as a portal between worlds. And what is the Starr theme referred to as? Another world. And look at the description of the investor video, sent to people on all of the worlds plural. Now Kotzagat talks about something called a white hole, in which the singularity is actually a pathway to another dimension. A white hole, eh? What happens when you shoot the black hole that 8-bit is able to go into? It shoots out white light. But what really gets me is that on the other side of this dimension, time runs backwards. What does Ranter say at one point in his speech?
I can't talk for long. Tick, tick, tick. Clock is ticking, but the weird thing is it's ticking backwards. Oh, man.
Oh, and one more thing on this subject. u/xsweezy8 found a Disney video that was eerily similar to the investor video, and by similar, I mean Walt Disney is wearing the exact same suit and tie as the man in the investor video. I don't think that's inspiration, I think that's straight up copying. Intentional copying, as if Starr is Disneyland from a parallel dimension. So it all lines up. Starr is sending people's minds through a black hole, or maybe several black holes, into a different reality by putting them into a radiation-induced coma and broadcasting their quote-unquote dreams through an antenna on this building. Oh yeah, you can tell that because of these waves coming from here and this control panel shown, which can be found on the inside of this spherical-shaped room. The investment that you'll be giving won't be money. When they say that Starr is the investment of a lifetime, they mean that quite literally. But even though I've explained the main idea of what Starr is doing, there's still a ton more to cover. For example, what are the robots? What is 8-bit? Are decade-old beans really safe to eat? But I think I'll save that for later. Right now, it's time to move on to the next chapter. Why is Starr doing all this? And I'll be honest, this part was probably the most difficult to find. I could find the means, but the motive was much harder. Kairos talked about world domination, but I think there's more. Ranter doesn't give us much information on why they are doing it because he doesn't know. But he does give us one possibility.
Tyranny is a possibility.
But considering everything that I said before was right, it seems like it would be a safe assumption to believe that this suspicion is correct too. But who in the world would be a tyrannical force ruling... Wait. A corporation that's active in the late half of the 20th century. Nuclear weaponization. Countless references to early space technology. Russian writing on objects that seem to be out of nowhere. Oh yes. Mr. P is part of the Soviet Union. Okay, well, yes, but not actually. Just let me explain. The Starr website on Gamba's laptop states that the park ran from the 50s to the early 70s. That is smack dab in the middle of the Cold War, and going further, that's pretty much the exact specifications to which the majority of historians believe that the space race ran for. And why else would we have so many instances of Russian writing? The Roscosmos X-ray clip, this pin on the Starr website, this ticket, and look at the Russian radio in Starr. We also have nuclear spaghetti. One of the largest subjects of the Cold War was the threat of nuclear disaster, the arms race that led to both sides having enough bombs and missiles to destroy the world countless times over. And of course, the space race, NASA versus the Soviet space program. There are so many references to space that I could probably double this video's runtime by listing them all. As you can see, the evidence for this is overwhelming. In fact, that's an understatement. It's kind of hard to see why I had such trouble connecting it. And that's because I didn't. I had already theorized that it had some relation to the Cold War even before the investor video came out. The hard part is the specific relation between the Starr Park and the USSR. What does transferring people into a mobile game in the future have to do with the communist union of countries? Well, it might have to do with a series of miscellaneous space birds, which, in all honesty, is a little insane, but, you know, what part of this isn't insane? Ranter seems to imply that birds are behind all of this.
That's penguins' favorite food. But it's outlawed, so they become criminals. To find the spaghetti black market. I know for facts that penguins are devious creatures. But those penguins, they're not my friends. Not like the crows. Those are my best friends. They are in an alliance with many seabirds beyond the borders of this dimension. Interdimensional birds.
Now, let's take a moment to think about this. As I've discussed before, Starr Park exists in a parallel dimension to ours, and I think that the people in the other dimension are a bunch of birds. Okay, so let me clarify. I don't mean that the entirety of this dimension's population is a bunch of anthropomorphic birds. I think that it's more of a metaphor or something like that. And I'm just going to try and ignore the fact that this spaceship is perfectly sized for a chicken. Now, what makes me think that is the picture right behind our narrator. Since it's perfectly in frame, we can assume that it's somehow important, and that the people behind this wanted us to get a good look at it. So let's zoom in on it. In the photo, we can see 3 men. Now, I believe that these are the founders of Starr Park. Keep in mind that this is purely speculation, but these men are obviously important, and I think those are blueprints or at least concept arts on the table. I don't think that Starr Park would just have some pictures of random people framed on the shelf. So what do these people have to do with birds? Well, one of the animations commissioned by Supercell was a clip titled Step Birds. In it we can see the 3 familiar birds in the franchise, Bo, Crow, and of course Mr. P. And for some reason, Bo seems to be extremely angry at Mr. P, and while extremely blurry, we can tell by the shadows and body postures that the man on the right seems to be happy, while the man in the middle is annoyed by him. And this lines up perfectly with the caption of the Bo cap on the website, looks angry. Great, so what does that have to do with the Soviet Union? Well, Ranter talks about a pasta industrial complex, which, if you're anything like me, you probably have no idea what that is, and in all bare essentials, it is a partnership between a company and a country. So, for example, a company may produce ammunition for a country's military. And in this case, the country would be the USSR, and the company would be none other than
Starr Corporation.
Or in English, Super Giant Starr Corporation. Now, in case you missed it, nearly every single WKBRL clip is some type of advertisement for toys, makeup, strange and specific types of repellent. I believe that Super Giant Starr Corporation is the one making these. They appear to be a jack of all trades. And this is really summed up in the Road to the Future promotional ad, which states,
"It's our belief that all our chemistry, all our computations, all our innovations, once you divide it by X and carry the 1, they add up to the future."
Which, while incredibly cryptic, shows that this company creates things like real explosive mines, sentient robotics, and most likely, biologically altered weaponized viruses. I think that the Soviet Union or Starr Park was attempting to cross into our dimension, and on some level they succeeded, but they wanted to put every single one of us into the simulation. They hid under the guise of an innocent theme park where they carried out experiments to create terrible weapons because they wanted to control everything. And they almost did it, but they couldn't control people that weren't in the simulation. People like SPUDE. And let's cover what SPUDE is. To be honest, I think that Kairos hit this one right on the nose. SPUDE is definitely Starr Park Union, and I very much believe that SPUDE is the force fighting against Starr Park. And that the only reason they were able to take down the tyranny was because they weren't in the simulation. Starr Park had to have someone film that investor video, and they couldn't be asleep while talking about it. But how does one exactly escape the clutches of mind control? Well, the Dancers Wanted ad states that
Spinning is important. It's a big part of the show.
And once again, Ranter tells us that
I'm spiraling and spinning.
and it's kind of difficult to understand what he means by that until he says,
And eventually, you vomit truth.
and as much as I would like it to be, this isn't metaphorical. Look at this man in the investor video. He's spinning, and he appears to be holding a bucket. You should be able to see where this is going. Yup, he throws up in the bucket. Never before have I been so happy to be analyzing what Starr Park is doing. Oh, yep, there's another reference to vomit. Okay. Sometimes I question if this was all worth it. Anyway, so Starr Park is using weaponized bacteria in its food, as I've already covered, so that they can control the minds of their employees and customers. Well, it makes intuitive sense that if they're feeding you mind control food, the best thing to do would be to stop eating it, but since they're watching your every move and making sure that you eat it, you have to go with the next best thing. That's why we need to be spinning out and not in. So anyways, you see this mascot being yelled at? I think they're threatening to put him back into the simulation if he doesn't stop doing whatever he is doing. At the end, we see him lying on the ground, and I don't think it's because he's dead, I think it's because he's asleep. They put him back into a coma. Maybe it was the ranter, it's certainly a possibility. But what is SPUDE exactly? Because we can tell that they aren't just some regular union working for some better pay. No, I believe that Starr Park Union are the ones that ended Starr Park. I believe that they're the ones that started the fire, and while I do have evidence to support myself, I should cover some other things first. Let's leave the conclusion to this mystery for conclusions, and let's discuss who some of these people really are. The investor video is our main source of intel here, being the longest and biggest puzzle piece that we have, and due to its size, we are still, several months later, uncovering bits and pieces that we haven't noticed before. Speaking of which, holy crap, that wasn't an accident, he shot the cactus, and now it looks like Spike. Okay, that is some good hidden lore right there. I applaud whoever thought of that. Anyways, I think it's fitting now that we talk about who and or what Spike is. Spike is probably the most valued point of interest. He's always been the most mysterious, and it's definitely obvious. I mean, look at him. In nearly every single post, he's just there, sitting quietly in the background. Even Ranter brings it up.
I gotta tell you this much right now. The cactus ain't what he says he is. It was just kind of a weird vibe.
Not to mention, he's the first person to attack Colt in No Time to Explain. With a few occasions, he's never in the spotlight, except here where he's literally in the spotlight. Plus, he's the only brawler who never got a voice, and you could argue that it's because he's a plant, but, you know, Mr. I Like Trees over here isn't even sentient, and it gets a voice. Just all around, he seems, well, wrong. So why? It also seems to be that people are scared of him. Once again, this man shot a cactus, and in Welcome to the Gift Shop, you can also see how Colt reacts to him. So what do I think he is? I think that Spike is a spy that has infiltrated Starr Park Union. A reminder that SPUDE is also referred to as the Mascot Union. A reminder that Starr Park only has two mascots, one being Mr. P, and the other being Spike. And at the end of the investor video, there's only one mascot standing. And I mean that quite literally, as in Mr. P is lying face first on the ground. In any case, look at the webmaster. On the second email sent, it states, "Some things have come delayed, and communications cannot be trusted and or trusted." If you recall, I noted that things that are important are repeated more than once, and guess what's repeated twice here? Why else would communications be not trusted or believed unless they had a spy in their midst? And we know that Spike was part of SPUDE, because guess what the woman who delivered the package was wearing? A cactus mask resembling Spike. But I think there's more to this. What exactly is Spike? Spike is a penguin. Bear with me, and Rancher blatantly calls him out on it.
Cacti. Again, formal wear. Penguins. Think about it. Penguins start with P. Cactuses have a P in there.
Spike is on the side of the well-dressed businessmen that are the penguins, and at the end of the day, he succeeded in finding out what SPUDE was doing. That's why the webmaster was captured. That's why Colette was introduced into the game's the newest quote-unquote skin. Wait, what did I just say? You heard me right. Let's discuss Colette. Colette was the brawler introduced back in September during the Starr Park update, when everything was being revealed, and I'm pretty sure it makes sense as to why I believe that she's the webmaster. I believe that Starr Park likes to use these employees as inspirations for the skins that they put into the game. I'll elaborate later. Think of the webmaster, one of the leaders for SPUDE. She collects evidence and items from Starr Park to try and show us what they're doing. Colette is a crazed fangirl who collects items from her favorite brawlers. I also find it interesting that she's obsessed with Spike, but I'm not going to cover that. It makes sense how someone, maybe Paul, could take inspiration from that and create a brawler around her. And that's not the only example of this. Look at Amber, a fire entertainer who gets released in the same month as the WKBRL fire. Look at Pam, who got a remodel announced on April 19th, the same day that the WKBRL stream went live. I can say with full confidence that Pam and Amber are parts of SPUDE. take a look at these stickers that Ray received back in the weeks leading up to the investor video. Now, he dismisses the symbols as nothing important, but if we look closer and brighten the image, we can see that there are 3 objects. A wrench, like Pan the Engineer, an olive branch that symbolizes peace, probably because that's what they're fighting for, and finally a fire, which obviously symbolizes amber. And now we're going to talk about robots, because they're also a pretty important piece in all of this. Now, I've been bouncing back and forth between whether or not robots are actually humans for a while now, mostly because there's conflicting evidence for both sides. But just like most of the contradictions that I've run into while trying to solve this, the answer is both. Let me elaborate, starting with the 8-bit minigame. No, I'm not going to go into detail about the entire minigame because I made a theory before we even knew what Starr Park was, and it still mostly holds up. The details are wrong, but the main idea is still right. In layman's terms, 8-bit thinks he is Ninja. He is not Ninja. He is just a delusional arcade cabinet who believes that the games in his programming are real. That's why he unplugs himself from the wall, and why finding out what he is virtually destroys him. But that leaves a very obvious question. Why is an arcade cabinet sentient? I mean, we see him in the investor video. He is very real and seems to be extremely panicked. But why? Because from the looks of it, he just appears to be getting his coin slot cleaned. And I thought about this for quite a while, until it clicked. What's the first thing that happens in Starcade Breakdown? The segment that isn't one of 8-bit's games? Bull puts ice cream in his coin slot. Yeah, big revelation. He's getting his coin slot cleaned because it got dirty. No, you don't understand. That's how 8-bit became sentient. Ice cream!
This is a load of barnacles.
Okay, like I've covered before, Starr Park has some kind of virus in their food, but I think this disease has a different effect on machines. Think about it, Rander is only able to be heard after an energy drink spills onto the radio. Why would they put extra work drawing that if it wasn't important? I also think that this bacterium makes people violent. Rander puts it beautifully.
Everyone's eating spaghetti, everyone's fighting!
That explains why these people are fighting each other. But I don't think 8-bit is the only one infected with this virus. I think that the entirety of Starr Park is contaminated. Look at the 2 other robots we see in the investor video, Bartleby and Bruce. Do you think that's a coincidence that these 2 robots also happen to be the only ones that cause great bodily harm to our narrator? The caption on the Starr Park website says very detailed designs, but too difficult. Not to build, difficult to work with. Look at what just the head did to him. There's also sick redheads. The only redheads in the game are the Junker family, the ones who probably build the robots. They're infected with this because they're infusing the germ with the machinery. And as a cherry on top, look at this can of paint, which, instead of being labeled as its color, is titled lead paint. And that doesn't make a lot of sense until you realize that lead is known for its radiation shielding properties, which keeps the disease from reacting with nuclear material and ending up like the rest of these people, asleep and in the game, which could be what happened to 8-bit. I'm going to talk about Ranter next, and no, the man who went on a rant on the radio stream is not Gale. He is Dynamite, and in all honesty, I'm about to disprove myself right after this statement, but it absolutely grinds my gears whenever someone says that Ranter is Gale. Alright, so I'm going to go out of my way to make a separate section for Ranter. Yeah, just wedge Ranter in between Identities of Brawlers and What Happened to Starr Park. No, actually, just forget entirely about this. I'm going to derail this entire video just to talk about why Ranter is intended to allude to Dynamite. Number 1, we straight up see Gale during the investor video, and while one could argue that this is before the sirens, I'll remind you that Gale does not seem like an insane conspiracy theorist. He is literally just a gardener doing gardener things. Second, he digs under the basement door. Wow, I wonder who has the tools at their disposal to dig a tunnel under the basement door. Would it be some old janitor, or would it be the miner? Third, he says he doesn't have a job. Guess who does have a job? Gale. He literally says in his voice lines,
Don't blame me, I just work for Mr. P.
Fourth, he says he was prospecting, which is the act of finding minerals. Even if you throw out all the other evidence, this should, alone, be enough to convince anyone that the old man from the stream isn't some employee, but a miner who is looking for minerals. Why would some random guy just doing his job be looking for gems? Fifth, he says his favorite word is gems. Do I even have to explain this one? Sixth, Gale is perfectly sane. He's just a happy, overworked old man. You know who happens to be a guy with a few screws loose? The same man with a barrel of dynamite constantly strapped to his back, and who half of his voice lines are insane laughter. But you want to know the best part? He isn't even actually Dynamite. He's just a guy who thinks he's Dynamite. And I will admit that he does sound more like Gale than Dynamite, but he also talks about how Spike kept following him in his dream. And guess what brawler is being followed by Spike in the video we got just a few weeks later? Surprise, surprise, it's not Gale or Dyna, it's Colt. Alright, so let me explain. I've already discussed how Starr Park is putting people into dreams, but a reminder that, at the time I am writing this, there are only 44 brawlers in the game. That is a far cry from the over 100 million accounts that existed back in 2020. Have you ever wondered why there can be duplicate brawlers in the game? It's a feature that was limited, but never removed. If this is Gale, it wouldn't make sense for Gale to be in two places at once, unless it's not just the employees in Starr Park that are trapped. Rancher talks about how people are swapping skins left and right, and he's not talking about actual skins, he's talking about brawlers.
Who are you when you look in the mirror if you're not the person you saw yourself yesterday? Somebody else, that's who.
And that also explains the skin ad about Daryl. Daryl is a kid, which explains his high-pitched voice and very fake lines, and why this French WKBRL ad refers to him as small. Ranter is one of the possibly millions that are trapped inside the game, and he's literally been driven mad from what they've done to his mind. He is paranoid and insane, and he's sacrificed himself to try and give us the truth. He is a lot of things. But he isn't Gale, and if I hear one more person say it, I'm going to lose my... Great, so who's this guy? You know, the main character of the investor video? The first thing we should address is that he's wearing formal wear, the thing that Ranter warns us about. I'm sure you can see where this is going if you haven't already figured it out, but still. What does that mean? Well, let's take our handy-dandy friend, the Starr Park website. Looking at this image of a plush penguin doll, we can see the caption, Plush Penguin, Stuffed Animal, First Edition, Upsetting Condition, Small Burn under Right Flipper. Now, looking closer, we can see that this doll's right flipper seems to be perfectly fine, so I don't know what you're talking about. Unless we take a look at the investor video, where Bartleby spills this acidic drink onto his hand, to the point where it literally burns his hand off. Yeah, small burn, no wonder he's in an upsetting condition. He lost a hand and his face got mauled. I hope Starr Park has insurance, no wonder they formed that union. But connecting two and two, we can declare that this man is Mr. P, or from the letter Lex received, his name is Courtin Pelteau. Alright, cool, so this man is Mr. P, I hear you saying, and I say to you, you're wrong. But you literally just said you don't know the half of it. Wait, no, don't leave. Let me explain. This man isn't Mr. P, he's Crow, and I believe that Kairos was right when he said that Mr. P wasn't a person, he's a position. Look at the plush caption. It states that he is the first edition, the first Mr. P in a line of Mr. Ps, this man being the second, and Ilka P presumably being the third. Now I'm confident that Corbin Pelteau is part of SPUDE. Rancher talks about how crows
know too much. That's why they're flying around squawking. Don't tell me, Crow. Don't tell me what you know before you know what you know.
And what does Corbin do on the investor video that was being sent to literally millions of people? He tells us exactly what Starr Park is doing. Oh, and you've got to give the editors of this a hand. So, should I edit the part where he tells all our potential investors the crimes against humanity that we're committing? Nah, it'll be fine. But there's more, because I'm not just speculating, I'm not a coincidence theorist, and there's more to Corbin Pelteau than meets the eye, because the name has meaning here. Do you think it's coincidence that Corbin means little crow in French, and that Pelteau is an anagram of Hotel P? But what the final nail in the coffin for me was this picture of the man from the investor video with the name Crow autographed into Colette's diary right above his name. And so yeah, Corbin Pelteau is meant to be Crow, and that's why he's surrounded by so many crows. He was Mr. P, but got yeeted into a coma when he told the rest of us the truth. So now it's time to cover our final topic. What happened to Starr Park? It's evident pretty much everywhere that Starr Park has been destroyed, from particulate and debris, the fire raging in the background of WKBRL, and it being quote-unquote defunct on the Starr Park website. I believe it's safe to say that Starr Park is out of commission. But why and how? Well, considering there's only one group of people that know what Starr Park is doing, I'd say that it's not that hard when we use process of elimination. Let's see, we have Spude and Sprout. Yeah, it's Spude. They have their stickers literally plastered all across the investor video, and it's very obvious that they're the ones fighting for the sake of humanity. But how exactly did it all go down? Well, I've already talked about Pam. We know that she's the leader of all this. She put up WKBRL. You can see the Morse code antenna has the same colors as Scrappy, and the gear necklace, the symbol of the Junker Trio, is there when the stream was first put up. Now, going back to the investor video, in the scene where they're in the core of the control building, we can see the boss robot. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss. And in case you didn't know, Pam also happens to be the one who builds these robots, as we can see in the scrapyard environment. And it's obvious that this robot is not meant to be here. The workers are evacuating, sirens are blaring, and if you listen closely, there also happens to be a crack in the building where green, probably radioactive gas is spilling out, and while some of the community has chalked this up to our knockoff Walt Disney smacking the builder with his pointer, he hits the lower levels of the sphere, nowhere near where the crack is. So I think that Pam is the first step in the downfall of Starr Park. She's the one to crash through the building and tear down the mind control center, causing a panic throughout the entire theme park, and freeing Corbin just long enough for him to spit out the truth.
In the future, the children control us. We fight in glowing rectangle.
Secondly, there's Colette, the brawler released for the Starr Park gift shop update. She's the webmaster, and in an attempt to try and warn us, she gave a laptop to the person who realized what Starr Park truly was. But she wasn't able to escape unscathed. She was captured, and that's why the last email sent from her has the encoded message SOS. And then we have Amber, the final punch from SPUDE. We can clearly see a fire raging behind Retropolis. Mix that with the countless references to smoke smells and burning, and we can infer that a fire was the feather that broke the camel's back. Well, in honesty, it's less of a feather and more of a 2-ton dumbbell, but close enough. I already mentioned before how Amber was released in October, which was the same month that the WKBRL sent out its final transmission. I believe that she was the one who set the park alight in a final attempt to stop Starr Park from accomplishing its goals. And there you have it. Starr Park is collapsed. It no longer exists. But there's still one problem with that. Brawl Stars is still running. If Starr Park is gone, then why isn't Brawl Stars shut down? And for once, I don't have an answer for that. So I'm going to give you a choice to believe. The first possibility is the happy ending, the idea that SPUDE was successful and the only reason Brawl Stars is running is because it was all in the past, and now the team is running the game on their own free will. But the second isn't as optimistic. There's a possibility that SPUDE didn't win, that Starr Corporation is still out there, rebuilding, recovering, and waiting. But I don't think that all hope is lost in that situation. WKBRL is still going, and even if we haven't had a change in several months, it wouldn't still be broadcasting if all were lost. Right now, we can only wait. We're coming up on April 19th once more, and I'm excited to see if something is going to happen on its 1-year anniversary. But as for now, I guess we'll just have to be patient and see if it's true what the voice says.
We already told you, this is normal. We already told you, this is normal. We already told you,